Are board members on right now? There's nobody I'm not seeing. Okay.
Not yet.
Good morning.
Morning, Shirley.
Good morning, Cheryl.
Good.
Good morning, Terry. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. Shall we begin? I'm going to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Nancy Kupka,
Here.
Mike Davenport,
Here.
Sherelle Fuller. Sherelle Fuller,
She's here.
I see her. I just need to hear her. Sherelle? Sherelle Fuller?
Present.
Thank you. Dan Nicholas?
I am here.
Thank you. Terry Pavasich?
Here.
Rick Pavanato?
Here.
And Joanna Vasquez Drexler? Did she come on? And Zoe Boyd? Sam Bull?
Here.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't see everyone.
Good morning, all. Do we need to stand for the pledge, I believe?
Yes.
Let's stand for the pledge.
I
I
pledge
pledge allegiance
allegiance
to the flag
of
the United States
of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's hard to do asynchronously.
That is very challenging.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you all for coming together at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. We called this special action meeting because Hank said he wanted to address the board. He had some thoughts about potentially changing the metric. And because we've had discussion about perhaps meeting weekly if needed, I just didn't want to let it go an additional week before we came to a point that we were going to make a decision. So thank you all for being so flexible with your schedules.
We also couldn't meet on the traditional Monday since Monday is a federal holiday. So
Yeah, we could not meet Monday because it's a federal holiday. So Hank, did you have anything to say before we open up the reception of visitors?
No, let's start with the reception of visitors.
Okay, we're going to go to the reception of visitors and we're going to start with the DGA, but this is an opportunity for audience members to address the board on any topic pertaining to Community High School District 99. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes to provide all visitors an equal opportunity to address the board. If you need more time, submit your thoughts in writing to Mrs. Nidek, the board secretary. Visitors addressing the board need to come to the microphone and state their full name. The proceedings are being tape recorded for the purpose of producing accurate meeting minutes, and we are live streaming. I reserve the right to modify these protocols if circumstances warrant, and we appreciate audience observation of these protocols.
All right, hopefully you guys can see and hear me okay. Good morning, my name is Valerie Hardy and I'm the president of the Downers Grove Education Association. I'm also a teacher at South, a member of the Downers Grove community, and I have a child who is a freshman at Downers Grove North in the hybrid model. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. DGEA as an organization has consistently supported a return to in-person learning so long as it is safe for all District 99 students, staff, administration, and the surrounding community. For the past 10 months, DGA and its members have had to put our trust in the District 99 Board of Education and Administration in consultation with health officials with decisions regarding when it is safe for students and staff to attend school in person. As we embarked on second semester, DGA members appreciated the clear metrics that Dr. Thiele and the board set forth. even if some of our members did not necessarily agree with them or the integrity of them. While there are some apprehension amongst our members about whether these metrics would be applied as outlined, there was a significant sigh of relief and increased faith when we saw that the first 2 weeks of the semester played out in accordance with the designated metrics. The sense of trust that this board and administration engendered by presenting a rationale for and sticking to these metrics that they set forth to start the semester was immeasurable. The trust that was placed was contingent on our understanding that our district's leadership's advocacy for clear and consistent metrics as originally presented was grounded in science and guidance from the health department. Earlier this week, Dr. Thiele at the board workshop meeting further reinforced his commitment to these metrics, stating, quote, "If I would have felt like we could set it at 10% and that we could have kept kids safe based on what we know now, I would have brought the board 10%. But I didn't, because 9 is where I feel confident, where our administration feels confident that we can keep kids safe at school," end quote. He further explained that, quote, "Nothing has yet changed in our understanding of how this works for me to recommend to the board that we expand beyond 9%. That could change in the coming weeks if we are able to come back and learn more, or if guidance changes from health agencies," end quote. In reality, the coming weeks that Dr. Thiele was referring to seem to have equated to just 3 days, the time between the January 11th board meeting and the circulation of the proposed change to the previously established metrics as shared with staff and the community on January 14th. Proposing a new set of metrics less than 2 weeks into the second semester is both deflating and infuriating. The call for this vote at this time and supporting these changes now undermines the trust that the DGA membership has placed in administration and the board to follow through with their own policies in a consistent manner. We recognize, as outlined at the most recent board meeting, the metrics could move up or down depending on new information, including experiences teaching in a hybrid environment, new research, including on the mutated form of the virus, new guidelines, vaccine distribution, and increased testing. Based upon the information available to us at this time, the only factor that we're aware of that could have changed over the past few days is the first one, our experiences in hybrid. However, making conclusions about safely returning to the building based on the data from the week of January 4th is flawed and inadvisable. Many students who selected hybrid and were thus expected to be in the building the first week of the semester were not present for some or all of that week. There is simply not enough data from the 4 days with fewer students in attendance than anticipated to attend in person going forward, not to mention it's the first week under our expanded hybrid model that doubles the unique groups of students in the building each day, to say that District 99 can safely operate under the initial metrics, much less under an even higher positivity rate threshold. Furthermore, the extent to which there was transmission of the virus within the building cannot even be known with fidelity at this time, as we are just 8 days out from our last in-person class, and according to the CDC, COVID-19 can remain dormant for 2 to 14 days. There appears to be no new information to justify changing metrics other than the sheer desire to change them. This further erodes our ability to trust a policy that changes at the whim of its creators and negates the predictability that having stable metrics provides. Also, while using the most current metrics available seems to make a lot of sense in determining the next week's educational model, there are many practical implications of using Monday's 14-day rolling average metrics instead of the previously committed to Friday cutoff to determine our remote versus hybrid status for the subsequent week. Though many teachers will monitor the metrics prior to Monday to see where they are trending, if the numbers are close to the threshold, teachers, as well as students and their families, will not find out until late Monday afternoon as to the final decision for the week. We have several concerns with this process. First, the Northwestern dashboard has been inconsistent in posting its daily metrics, so there's a good chance that the final metrics will not be available on Monday afternoon. Therefore, not only is there a concern about waiting until Monday afternoon, we are unclear on what will happen if these metrics are not available. What figures will the district use in such cases? As teachers, we pride ourselves on being prepared to teach our students. At this time, we are required to have weekly plans ready and published to students by 8 o'clock each Monday morning. This is already a struggle when we are not notified until Friday as to the form school will most likely take the next week. We are now being asked to create a plan for Monday morning without knowing for certain until Monday afternoon whether students will be fully remote or hybrid. It is quite difficult to provide students with informative plans for the week, given the potential uncertainty of the model under which they will be learning. This 11th hour notice is particularly problematic for a number of our instructional disciplines. For example, CTE. There are several teachers who need more lead time to assemble materials for their classes. As just one example, our culinary teachers struggle with providing food to their in-person and remote learners in a way that both allows every student to participate in class and also does not lead to wasted perishable food and money. For science, teachers whose curricula are heavily lab-based require advance notice and time to prepare. If teachers do not know if students will be in person until the night before a lab, it's difficult to plan for at best. Planning a lab just in case that doesn't end up running would waste time, chemicals, and in many cases also money. Furthermore, holding off on planning a lab for the second half of the week would regularly exclude half of our in-person students. For physical education, some of our PE teachers have expressed that their plans change drastically based on the mode of instruction, that for remote teaching, they use the same plan with everyone, but with the hybrid model, they have to come up with 3 differentiated plans. One for the students in the room, one for the students on the Zoom that day, and one for the permanently remote students, so that the students are not simply repeating the same activities day in and day out. And finally, for fine arts, there are several teachers whose specialized disciplines require them to structure their lessons differently under the hybrid model versus under the remote model. And this requires extra notice to be able to appropriately distribute the necessary materials to carry out meaningful instructional activities with their students. DGA's leadership is left wondering how to explain these seemingly arbitrary shifts to our members, many of whom approached us with concern after receiving notice of the proposed change in metrics. We find the lapse in consistency of metrics and the manner in which the proposed change came about deeply problematic. The fundamental problem we have with the motion on the table is a loss of trust. In December, we were asked to trust that the reason the district couldn't establish metrics during first semester was because of the lack of transparency and consistency from our health department and state and federal leadership. During the December board meeting, district leadership provided cogent thoughts as to why it became possible to establish metrics for second semester that are based on both CDC information and local community health statistics. On January 11th, those numbers were reinforced as the accurate numbers to confidently support the safety of all in our district. Now, the Board of Education is proposing to change these metrics, even though the parameters under which the current metrics were created have not changed. There are too many variables at this time to shift the metrics, especially when the advocacy for such a move is based on insufficient data. DGA fundamentally opposes the change as proposed and urges the board to vote against this action. Thank you.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you, Val.
Sorry, I just assumed. Thanks, Val. We have nobody else in the room that wishes to address the board. We did receive 14 comments through the online form. And the responses are mixed in those 14 responses. However, they lean towards the recommendation to supporting the recommendation to change the metrics. All of those comments will be provided in whole form to the board and will be made part of the official minutes and record.
Thank you, Hank. Okay.
Rod, could you pull up the slide deck? Thank you. All right. Yeah, Val was an excellent opener for me because a lot of the questions that were raised in there are what I hope to address in this morning's meeting. So, you know, over the course of this school year, a baseline that I think that we need to establish with the community that might not be clear out there, that I know is well known amongst our teachers and our board and our administrative team, is that the first responsibility of a school system is the safety of their students. Legally speaking, we are responsible for student safety from what we always talk about as educators, from portal to portal, from when they first step foot outside of their door until they arrive back into their house at the end of the school day. Technically speaking, or legally speaking, it's called in loco parentis. We are assuming the full role of a parent for the time that a student is with us. And as a school leader, and I know myself and the rest of the administrative team, especially Ed and Janice, all of us feel that we have a responsibility to be able to look any student in the eye and say, you'll be safe with us, the same with our staff. And we expect to be able to look at and talk to any parent and say, your kid, your most precious thing in this world is going to be safe with us when you send them off to us. That is the mindset that we have for 5,000 students across the district. And we realize that each family, each parent might have a different comfort level with COVID and where their comfort level would be to send everybody off to school. But we as an administrative team also have to have a level where we can truthfully and honestly to any student, to any staff member, to any parent say, you will be safe with us. And that is the position that we have worked from all school year. And as I continue to share as an administrative team, we believe that that statement can be said when we design a system where COVID is unlikely to spread when you're here at school. And there's many factors here that play into this as we continue to point to those instructional programming, what our program is like in that hybrid model, the guidelines and the strategies we have to keep people safe, and the rate of community transmission. Those last two play together, as we've discussed for the last several months, that your ability to keep people safe is highly dependent on the rate of spread of COVID within your community. They are not mutually exclusive from one another. And then those two are greatly impacted by your instructional programming. How often are you having kids mix at school? How long are they there? You know, are they able to maintain the safety guidelines for the duration of the time that they're there? And are you having them participate in activities that make it unlikely for COVID to spread? Those are the factors that are playing in. And at the start of all of this, we had absolutely no experience in running school during COVID. Nobody did. So we were designing under the guidelines we received over the summer, which then changed the week before school started and introduced this idea of community metrics playing into how things work. And as I've shared with the board in the past, the initial understanding that we had over the summer was follow these guidelines and everybody will be safe. End of story. But what we have learned since then is, yes, they're safe to a certain extent. And as the level of the virus spreads in your community, the less effective your safety measures are expected to be. So what this meant was at the beginning, as this was released to us and the DuPage County Health Department started talking about how metrics would work and impact us, we'll focus on positivity rate because that's the number of discussion within the community. And we've created that, and I'll explain why that's the focus. But the positivity rate from DuPage County Health Department said we should start to really be concerned returning students under our old hybrid model around 5%. And then we modified our hybrid model so that there would be only one passing period per day. And based on that modification in instructional programming, matched up with the strategies and guidelines, we then moved that positivity factor to 8% and felt like we could keep students safe up to that 8% threshold. And we brought students back as we were in the 6s, and while they were back in that hybrid model for those 2 weeks, we rose up to that 8% threshold. What we did over time was we applied what we had learned to modify those metrics, and knowing our programming, knowing what was going on, and we ran 2 weeks of hybrid, 2 weeks of half days. We also ran 2 months of students in cohorts, in our special ed cohorts. As long as the metrics were under 12%, we stayed out of tier 3, we ran those. what we found, our experience over those periods of in-person learning, either in the modified or in the hybrid model or in our cohort models, was that our experience correlated with the rising positivity rates. As the positivity rates rose, and we were in school, we started to see illness spread into our school, whether that be, it was really the number of students and staff that were out. Now, that doesn't mean that they got it at school. We don't believe they did, but it did seem to indicate that the amount of illness present in our community and in our school community was rising as community rates were rising. So at that point, the positivity rate became a benchmark for us to be kind of an early warning system for what we would expect would happen in our schools based on our experience. It was a transparent and easy to find number. It would help the community, as Val said, follow the numbers throughout the week and know what direction we were headed in. And in December, I came to the board and said, based on our experience, which I've just shared with you, we feel that number that is safe is 9%. And when asked in December by the board if that number would change before semester 2, we said no. I said no. There's nothing in our experience, because kids wouldn't be back in an in-person model, would lead to us having any more data or information or experience to modify that number between December 14th and the start of second semester. And that is the number we used when we came back the first week. And then we used going into the second week because we didn't have enough time to learn yet and to process from that first week. When we met on Monday, I did share with the board that we didn't have any information yet to indicate that number should change, as Val pointed back to. However, every week since this school year started, our full administrative team meets every Monday, which we did Monday before the board meeting, and talked through what our experience was from the week before. And that first week back was very positive. But as of Monday, we wouldn't have known the impact of any illness. We hadn't a chance to fully go back and talk to all of our teams and fully process that full week. Let's go back to that first full week of school. And in that first full week of school, we came back with numbers above 9%. By the end of that week, we were over 10%. However, as Val indicated, we did have students choose to either self-quarantine or stay home that week. And depending on the class period throughout the week, we had about 89% of students in attendance on average in any class period day throughout the week across the district. So we factor, you have to factor in the fact that we didn't have full attendance over that week. And it took us a while to find what that real number was and to process that through all the data. But we knew anecdotally from talking to our teachers and looking at our general attendance data that we didn't have all of our students in person that week. However, the amount of evidence we were able to gather over the course of that week is equivalent to our 2 weeks of being in the hybrid model, since we had the equivalent number of hours of class time available in that first week. So if we're using the time in the hybrid model in the fall as a data point, the time in that first week is equivalent to the amount of time in the fall. Therefore, it's as valid now as it was then, based on what we know now. When we met this week, we met with, as I said, our entire administrative team on Monday. And then, as we have every week of the school year when we've had students in school, Ed, Janice, Gina, Rob, Scott, and various associate principals had met with us in further intensive, specific meetings to look at things like transportation or contact tracing or illness amongst staff and students. We've discussed our safety measures and our ability to adhere to those things. And every time we've had students in person, the next week we talk through how did we do? Were we able to go through those things? What happened this week was later in the week, just like we have every week of the school year, we met with those small teams and discussed those specifics. Were we able to follow our safety measures? Has any illness tracked back? And yes, we're at 7 to 10 days at this point of a window of time. Up to this point, as of Friday, we are not tracking any illness back to school. And by the time we hit Monday, we would know if that was the case. We were able to track illness within a 24-hour period for that week, even though we doubled the number of students that were coming back to school that week. We did that by adding additional agency nurses, and you'll see we're also adding additional support for that. And over the course of that first week of school, we had no issues with staffing. Over the course of the week, the number rose above 10, and it was at about 10.4 by the end of the week. Based on the fact that we had time to debrief and fully understand that week and know if our experience was a good one, we made the next logical choice and did exactly what we explained we would do within the community. We used our past experience that was benchmarked by that positivity rate. We moved above 9% and indicated that this past week we would be fully remote. We did the work over the course of this past week, and based on this experience, our administrative team believes we feel that we can keep our students, staff, and our community safe when positivity is less than 10% to start a week, as it was when we had headed into that first week of school this semester. I have indicated all along to the board that we would come back and discuss as soon as we felt that we had enough evidence to move that number or for it to change up or down, we would come back to the board and have that discussion. And that's what leads us to being here today. The 10% isn't a random number. It reflects our experience and it points back to the top of the range within that CDC guidance. That CDC guidance has become an interesting, as I said, correlation in how we are doing this. As people look at the decisions we're making in our community, it's easy to look at bits and pieces of information to put together and back up a point of view as to what the school district should be doing. However, this administrative team has worked very closely over the course of the school year, constantly sharing and learning about the experiences that we're having within our schools. And ultimately, Ed and Janice and I, we talk every day about how we get students back to school, what the metrics say. The larger team with Gina and Rob and Scott and us meet multiple times throughout the week. This is constant, ongoing conversation. And ultimately, that team is the only set of experts in the entire world that can put these three things together: instructional programming, strategies and guidelines, and the impact that illness has had on our community, and have a full perspective about how they all interact with one another to be the District 99 experience within this instructional model. This week we met, we had the same kind of discussions that we've been having all year. And we feel that based on that experience and what we have learned at the end of, or coming into next week, we can say when community transmission indicates that it's below 10, based on our experience, based on the correlation we've seen, your kids will be safe with us. That's why we're back here this morning to have this conversation, because as soon as we feel like we can do that, we strongly believe that if we can keep students safe at school, it's our responsibility to have them here. That's our full purpose of why we exist, is to have students here with us in school. So as a leader that, I am a science teacher, I'm a logical and rational person. We consider all the variables as they change and the evidence in front of us, and then we make the next change based on what we have learned and how we move forward. It could change again as we move forward, and could go down based on what we learn. It could change in any direction based on what we learn. This is a novel virus. None of us have the answers. None of us have the answers for our own specific instructional model. None of this has ever been done before. But what we do is carefully go through all of the knowledge that we have gained and the goals of what we're trying to accomplish, and try to match that up to get the right answer for our students. Next slide, Rod. So based on our review of this week, we have some changes that are already underway. We know that contact tracing, we did see more illness that we had to follow up on. Most of that was people choosing to self-quarantine outside of school. Actually, we had very few students out because they were sick in the last week, less than 1%. The majority of absences in the last week were people that students we expected to be coming to school, but chose to stay home for whatever reason their family chose. But we follow up within a 24-hour period with anybody reporting that they're staying home due to any kind of COVID-related illness or like illness. So we were able to keep up with that amount of work with the additional nurses we added, but we expect that might grow. So our athletic directors had a great idea of utilizing our athletic trainers as additional help for contact tracers. We have added one additional contact tracer at each of the schools to keep up with that workload. And we have additional ones that we could add at a moment's notice if we need to keep up with that work. We've also, through our review, there's a process of notification. There's two notification levels. One is the contact tracing, right? If you were a close contact to somebody, we follow up with you with a personal phone call or conversation to let you know that you were a close contact to somebody, and then how the quarantine period works and all of those pieces, and what signs of illness you need to be looking out for. We have another process that's the low risk letter. We have made this a pretty intensive process to try to follow a set of protocols to get those low risk letters out. Our process is far more time intensive than what other schools in the area are doing. Other schools in the area are generally notifying people if a student came to the school in general, and we later find out that they had COVID. And most of those notifications are being posted to a website. We're going to follow that notification procedure. The intent of the low risk letter is to just let somebody know that they came into a location where COVID was present. That's pretty much the entire community right now. If you go to the grocery store, you go anywhere, COVID is present in the community. So we were taking a far more time intensive and aggressive process with those low risk letters. And what we were finding was that people were confusing the low risk letters with a close contact letter. So it was causing a lot of anxiety with people, and they thought that they were at risk because of that low risk letter. And we feel like we need to step that back a little bit and get it closer to what the intent of that letter is, and reduce some of the anxiety our process is causing, and some of the time that it's taking our team to keep up with those low risk letters. So making a change in that. And then we have two major things we've been working on for, one of them for the past month, which is testing programs. Scott and Gina have been working on, Scott mostly on the internal testing process, getting our CLIA waiver and getting to the point where if we need to, for a staff member or a student could do a COVID test on site. We're still working through that process and waiting for a CLIA waiver, but Scott's been working diligently on how that might look. And then Gina has been really working on, with Scott's help, the external lab testing for saliva-based testing of all students that are returning in person. We plan on bringing a proposal for that to the board at the January 25th meeting, where we would then have as a requirement, a condition of choosing a hybrid model, you would be selecting to participate in the saliva-based testing. And then from there, over time, we could lessen our reliance on community metrics and point more towards the actual rate of illness or presence of the virus within our own school system. The other thing that happened was Monday of this week, we met with the Regional Office of Education, and the process of putting together a vaccination program for school employees was tasked to the superintendents of the high school and elementary districts to put together a plan that works on site for us. So we've been working, we've spent a lot of time over the past week identifying a provider to do the vaccinations and develop a potential plan. We're also working closely with the villages that we partner with, as we both have the need to vaccinate essential employees and are comparing notes and processes there. And we hope within the next week here to come up with a process for vaccination that we could also share with the board at the January 25th meeting. Both the idea of testing and vaccinations will cause us to greatly change or consider changing how we measure if it's safe to come back to school. Next slide, Ron. So just to review, this is a slide that indicates from the CDC the things that we should be considering in, and we do consider that community burden, but of course, as I said earlier, that is correlated with our experience, and those things factor together. Our third key indicator is the ability to keep up with contact tracing. And then of course, we need to follow the safety strategies, the mitigation strategies that are listed below. So based on all of our work over the course of this year, and especially our recap and administrative review of the first week over the past week, if you go to the next slide, Rod. You know, we're recommending that we set that positivity rate below 10%, since we were able to keep students safe in a week that we opened at 10%, and we kept our staff safe during that week. There are concerns about using the Northwestern website because data is delayed there. So what we've started doing, actually, there's a community member, Rich Benema, who has been working closely with me because he's been recording IDPH data since early January. So he shared his data set with me, and then I went and I'm gathering it for the district as well, and have verified his numbers against the IDPH and the Northwestern numbers. By Monday, we will have an internally calculated 14-day average. So we will still use the Northwestern website as a third-party independent validation of our math and make sure that we're calculating and recording all of the data correctly. But come Monday, on the dashboard that we're copying for District 99 off of the Northwestern website, we will add a tab to that that has the IDPH data as well. As we head in today, I don't have that data for you because we haven't collected 14 days yet of data. However, I do have the 7-day average for us, and we are at 7.93 for the 7-day. So, you know, we are below that 10% in which we opened in that first week, and we're trending down. In that first week, we opened below 10% and we were trending up. So when we say follow the science, follow the data, follow the trends, it is likely that at some point next week, if not by Monday, we are under that 9% threshold that we set on December 14th. And we'll have another set of data to back up what we've been gathering from Northwestern. We appreciate the voluntary work that Northwestern University is doing in making that data easy and accessible for communities to use. But we know that, they're staffing it and doing it out of the kindness of their heart. And if we're trying to make timely decisions, we just want to go to the source with IDPH. So we'll use the IDPH data to have our own 14-day rolling average, and then validate our math and our numbers against the Northwestern site moving forward. So we chose Monday because, that is closer to the date. And I know some board members raised concerns of the number Friday looking so far back before school started. I would be comfortable with that being Friday or Monday. You heard from our teachers. Looking at that number on Friday definitely gives them the weekend to know what's going to happen and to plan, and probably creates a better educational experience for our students the following week. Monday gives us, more recent data. The world of COVID is all about trade-offs, and we trade off more recent data for putting our teachers in a position where at the last minute they're having to modify and change plans. It puts a lot of stress on our teachers, and might create not the best learning environment, even if we are able to come back in person. But I did hear clearly that people were concerned about using the most recent data. So this is all trade-offs. So we brought, based on what I heard from board members and from the community, that the Friday before numbers were looking too far back in the past. So that's why the Monday recommendation is there. I'd like to hear in the discussion that follows here with the board, where the board members fall on that. Now that, you've heard what we knew all along from our teaching staff, and you've also heard from our community as well. Other than that, all of our metrics remain the same. All of our safety protocols remain the same. We're staying at 12% for cohorts. That mirrors our experience from first semester. 12% seemed to be the number of concern. That's when we started to see illness spread amongst that student body and even some of the staff there. It's more prevalent in the community. So staffing started to become challenging. So last slide, Rob. So that's our recommendation coming into today, although the board absolutely, I'm hoping the board has a discussion about what I just shared with you. And then the administration is obviously open to changing that recommendation, or the board not approving it at all and leaving it 9%, or any other variation upon that as the administration always does. So that's it for the superintendent report on the topic.
Thank you, Hank. Okay, we are open for discussion. Did you want to start, Terry? Otherwise, I'll start off if nobody wants to begin.
Go ahead, you start, Nancy. But I think, didn't Sherelle have to leave? So maybe she needs to speak first. I don't know.
I guess I'll hear from the rest of the board and then I'll share my opinion.
Okay. Well, I'll start. I got to say, this is one of the 3 times in my 10 years here that I have come into a meeting not knowing which way I was going to fall on, which way I was going to vote. So this stuff has been swirling around in my head, and I'm just going to, there's pros and there's cons, and that's what I've actually done, is just made a pros and cons list for myself. And it's not in any given order, but these are my thoughts. Take them for what they're worth. So the pro is, I think, for changing the positivity metric is we all recognize the positivity metric is not really that great of a metric, period. There's a lot of vagaries associated with it. However, it is one of the two primary measures advocated by the CDC and the DuPage Board of Health. And while a lot of people argue that it can be artificially high because there are older people, more older people are being tested, it also, I would argue, might be artificially low because of poor sensitivity of the antigen test, which they, to Dan's point a few weeks ago, they dumped in there, and lack of access by those who can't afford to be tested. This is absent the whole discussion about the fact that our incidence rate, which is the rate per 100,000, is 50% above the top level recommended by the CDC or DPA or IDPA. We'll just say CDC and IDPH going forward because they mirror each other pretty much. And that can't be ignored. We are already operating 50% above the high end of that rate. There is an indicator, there is a secondary indicator that speaks to percent change in new cases per 100,000 population during the last 7 days compared to the previous 7 days, which might be valuable to consider. And that's about, the end of that is less than or equal to 10%. And I just roughly looked at it because I didn't have all the historical data. And frankly, we've been at about that ongoing. Okay. Another pro. Governor Pritzker is moving we should soon, hopefully, be moving down a tier based on a 12% positivity rate, which is significantly higher than what's being proposed here today, right? But again, I keep thinking about that incident rate, the fact that we are already above the recommended incident rate. We are surging, and the impact of the holidays is not yet fully felt, which concerns me. And then we have the emergence of the new B117 lineage of SARS. We don't know what the impact of that is going to be on our community. To think that we were never going to have alterations in the virus would have been naive. We knew this was coming. We just don't know what the impact of that is going to be. Okay. Our pro, we have 2 weeks of experience. Our con, we have 2 weeks of experience. So the fact that, I appreciate the fact that administration is following so closely. I am both heartened that we have some experience and concerned that we have so little experience. The pro is parents have the choice about whether or not they send their children to school. But I don't know if that's an informed choice about all of the risks. You know what I mean? I frankly, when my children were in high school and even in college, I left it to the school to decide a lot of things because I felt they were doing a good job of that. The con is both the staff and community don't have a choice about whether or not we go back. They have a voice, but they don't have a choice unless they're a parent of a student. The pro, we have increased staff and we feel like we can manage it. I think that's great. We've hired new nurses. We've got some more contact tracers. I still don't understand, feel like we can do it is an anecdotal review. I know you're looking at different indicators, but we really, and frankly, it's all you can do right now. I'm not faulting the administration and saying, oh, you're not looking at closely enough. It's all that is available. I get that. I understand that. So it's going to be, we're really limited with objective criteria. And the whole idea about case monitoring and tracing back with fidelity to whether or not a transmission happened in school, it's a swag. It's a scientific wild ass guess. And that's all it is. And again, I'm not condemning the fact that we're doing it because that's the only thing available for anybody, including healthcare professionals. The pro is that we have community supporting this change. The con is we have members of the community supporting remaining the same. The pro is that we have other schools that are opening and don't seem to have a problem with outbreaks. However, not all of those schools are back yet. And all of those schools are following our original hybrid model, right? They're having fewer students in class. So we have Hinsdale, relatively the same numbers. They have no history of outbreak. They're following the old hybrid example. Naperville is going to hybrid at the end of January. Westmont is coming back next week. Wheaton Warrenville, I think they're back. I didn't.
They're back next week following a similar, almost all the, so
they're back next week.
Yeah, and as I've always said, it's dangerous to compare
Oh yeah.
the models. However, especially from the first semester, they were very different. However, as you indicated, most schools are returning under a similar hybrid model where half the kids are coming back over the course of the week at a time in
Right.
different time structures. But
In different time structures, but most of them, it seems to me, from just a quick review, it's like our original hybrid model,
yeah,
right?
they're getting closer to one another now.
So, that's heartening because we have other boards that are and administrations that are supporting returning to hybrid. But again, we don't really know. And while the percentage of young people is low, the con of this is, so we're coming back because there is, and I agree, there's varying documentation about the impact of hybrid on young people. I don't think it is, it does not seem to impact the same younger people in the same numbers that it's impacting older people. I think that's pretty consistent across the research, but it's not absent. You know what I mean? There's still opportunity there. Still, if younger people who get hybrid tend to be hospitalized and tend to be, if they become ill, become more severely ill, although many of them don't have any symptoms at all. So it's an unknown. And the results, we're learning more and more about the results just because there hasn't been time about the devastation of the disease. So I continue to grapple with this stuff in my head about what is the right thing to do. I am not a risk-averse individual. I've taken a lot of risks in my personal life. When it comes to safety, though, in this case, I lean, as I have always leaned, on erring on the side of safety. So that's where I am. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts.
So I'll chime in next. So thank you, Nancy, for really driving us down the path of the pros and cons. I have a question, and I've been researching and trying to look through all these things because there's a lot of data, a lot of information out here, right? As it should be, right? We're talking about a world pandemic. I was recently talking to a coworker who's in Europe, and they've totally gone to a 6-week shutdown or again. So, not only I have the perspective of here, again, world pandemic, I'm hearing from different people and how things are being handled. I guess the question I have, Hank, you're advocating, because I was digging through the notes, to start this on Tuesday. What's you're advocating to? Right now, for me, I wouldn't say that I couldn't be opposed to the 10%. We had a big discussion last week about 9 and why 9 was right. And, here we're today within a week asking for a higher number. However, I'm not certain I'm comfortable with this as early as Tuesday. I feel like I haven't as much information I've tried to gather in this short distance of time of calling for a special meeting on just this past Wednesday to have it on Saturday. I've tried to find out as much information as I can, but do I feel fully informed? Do I feel even fully informed after even the information you just provided? I'll say no. So I could potentially be in favor of it. I don't know how comfortable I am with saying, let's do this on Tuesday. And that's my honest answer right now. And, that's where I stand.
So Sherelle, to clarify, I'm sorry, are you saying you support the change to 10, but maybe not as soon as Tuesday?
Yeah, I think I'm saying I could, but not as soon as
Not
Tuesday.
right now. Okay, thank you.
So I've got a couple of comments. I'll try to keep them brief for us all since it is a Saturday morning. First off, want to congratulate Hank and his staff for having the flexibility and continuing to work to refine the metrics and refine our plan to make it safe for the kids to be back in school. So first off, I just wanted to say thank you to you and the team for doing that. Secondly, maybe not as related to the 10% number, but as you know, I have fundamental issues with this statistic being used as the measure of indicator of safety. And unfortunately for you, I'm not going to let that go. It'll come up in future meetings. I'll keep bringing that up. But in regards to the 10%, I am strongly in favor of making that change and making that change now. It's a step towards getting the kids back in school sooner. I feel even more comfortable about it considering that the current 14-day average is like 9.5 or something like that and trending down. So we may be under 9 or really close to 9 on Monday or Tuesday anyway. So we're almost already to where we were. You mentioned, Hank, the 7-day average is actually under 8 at 7.93. So I strongly support making this move, but also encourage the administration to continue being flexible and looking at these metrics, especially as things change, either positively or negatively with the strain, with how our vaccines impact these types of numbers. As we can do testing and actually look at internal metrics, I encourage you to keep that flexibility in mind and keep looking at those. Just one question for you. Because we're using a 14-day average here, a 7-day average is a good indicator on the direction that 14-day indicator is going. So would it be possible, if you're making a decision on Monday, would it be possible for you to indicate to the teachers on Thursday or Friday, hey, not making a decision now, but the trend looks like, and most likely we will be in school? Because I'm thinking most of the time you're going to be able to make that call based on the 7-day number and the trend that we're going, just to give the educators as much time as possible to plan for that.
Dan, I'll just comment on that while we're on it. One of the things that we did discuss on the administrative team, remember, we're trying to balance ease of use as part of transparency with picking the right numbers and metrics and, based on evidence. Something the team did discuss was setting it at 10, but only if the 7-day average was on the decline. Right. So that was, something that we kicked around on our team, is working in the 7-day trend with the 14-day positivity rate. It just, it adds a layer of complexity to it that, people have to understand the full piece to know what's going on. I think that would be something fair to discuss at this time, or to the board to consider based on what you're saying now.
Yeah, I think my only thoughts with that is I think the 7-day number is a good indicator on the direction that the 14-day is going. But as you're using a smaller data set, 7 days versus 14 days, that 7-day numbers tends to be more volatile and more susceptible to things like large spikes in either number of tests or large spikes or changes in data. So honestly, for the visibility for the public, I would be hard pressed to say, I think that's a difficult number. I would prefer to use that 7-day number if you can, and if you're comfortable on Fridays or Thursdays, to send a note out to the teacher saying, it looks like, based on current trends, that on Monday, the decision will be to be back in school because we're going to be under 10. You would know, if we were at 9% and the 7-day was at 14%, you pretty much know that it's going in that wrong direction, and then no numbers would flip. So that's my only concern with the 7-day number. It tends to be much more volatile.
Dan, you ended up exactly where the administrative team ended up in the discussion. The last thing, yeah. So, and just in conclusion, and I'll stop talking. I know it's Saturday morning. Like I said, fundamental issues with that 10% number. We'll talk about that more in the future. But for the vote today, strongly in favor of the move to 10% to get the kids back in school and to honestly give us more of that data that we can use and move forward. So that's my thoughts.
I'm going to say that, Nancy, you laid everything out, the pros and cons. I know I couldn't do a better job. And like Sherelle, I feel that there's not been enough time. I'm not comfortable voting for that at this time. The other thing that bothers me is the unpredictability of this virus, and that this back and forth into school. I mean, it does make life in general hard to plan for the families and the staff. And I think in the final analysis, I think that public health, you don't have education if you don't have good public health, basically. And so I'm not comfortable voting for the 10% at this time.
Who's next?
I'm going to be very short. I am full in favor of this. Anything that we can do to get the kids back into school, I'm for. I don't think this is a radical movement of the numbers. I think it helps us better get the kids back in school where they need to be. So I'm full in favor of this, like I was a couple days ago when I mentioned it to begin with.
I'm also in favor and support. I would just echo what Dan's comments were. I agree with pretty much everything he said. Nancy, great job with the pros and cons, but I prefer to stay out of the weeds and let the let Hank kind of lead that. And it, rightly or wrong, you can't help it. That's your level of expertise. I'm an architect, so I rely on you and Hank in this. So my only concern, I guess, is just hearing from the DGEA this morning, and some concern about, if the last item on the slide, adequate staff and students available, always a factor. Whether or not you've gotten some input, from the DGEA as to whether or not this change to a Monday decision will affect staffing. And I guess that would be my only concern, but I support whatever you're recommending here.
Mike, I don't think it would affect staffing and staff like choosing not to be here at school, right? I think it does possibly have impact on the ability for our staff to be able to plan what's happening with their families the next week. Everybody's dealing with a variety of childcare issues, or many people are, and the structure of work life and their partners at home or whoever that is, right? So the later that we make the decision for our families or for our staff, just the more complexity it introduces into their lives. I don't think that our staff, all of our staff have been the utmost professionals through this whole thing. I don't think that there's any risk of, a staff member acting unprofessionally as a result of this change. It, quite honestly, though, does put more stress on our employees to make this change.
So can you, what Dan's suggestion that you're on Friday giving people an indication, hey, we're things are moving this direction. Of course, we'll make the final call on Monday, but just the look forward, this is where we're looking for the next week, just to give people some sense of what to expect.
It does, but it doesn't eliminate the uncertainty that they're concerned about.
Absolutely, I understand. And that's the nature of the beast here, right?
It is.
And you can't do more than this, but to give people some sort of an indication ahead of time, and then everyone can also be looking at those numbers just like they've always been available. So giving people a sense on their own to be able to see where we're going, and for you to kind of affirm that, understanding that everything could change on Monday because we still have data to collect on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So thank you.
I just have a quick question. Is there going to be new opportunity for students and families to choose fully remote after the statistic changes? Like,
Yeah.
is there going to be a new form sent out and everything?
Yeah, students can always choose to go from in-person to remote. It's the other direction that we haven't, except for rare occasions allowed for, because we have to make sure that we have space in every classroom. So we can't allow the other way and more students to show up than what we've planned for and where we've placed all of the classes. But yes, students could hear this change and choose, hey, I'm not comfortable, or families, I'm not comfortable with the safety measure of this metric at 10 rather than 9. So I'd like to move to remote, and they could do that at any point.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I'm not voting, but if you want to hear the student perspective, I think that, at least for me, with that option that's always there to be able to go remote, I think that we should definitely strongly consider and potentially approve that 10% number.
I guess it's my turn. I am so torn with this because personally, I don't like the fact that every week it seems to change. You're remote, you're in school. You're in remote, you're in school. I don't think that that's a really good thing for anyone to do. The other thing is that, as Nancy said earlier, this virus is so unpredictable that we don't know how this mutation it's just come into Illinois, and we don't know how that's going to affect us. And God only knows when we're going to get vaccines in our arms. So we don't know, how long that's going to be. It could be, next week, or it could be next month, or even the end of the month, the end of the semester. So I'm just so torn on this because I understand the numbers and that, but gosh, safety is a huge deal. So I don't know. I can't wrap my head around all of it. So I don't know.
I would just make an argument in favor from the standpoint that this is what our team is recommending that we do, and as we've trusted them with so many things, and and they've proven time and time again, not just on this issue, right? But everything else that we rely on, that we don't have these deep discussions about, and we trust. And there's been absolutely no evidence that we shouldn't trust the recommendation. And so that's, sometimes it's difficult, right? We all want to, know. We're afraid about sticking our own necks out sometimes, making a mistake. And especially when it comes to things that we're just not experts about, and we're not. This is, we're just not. And it's unfortunate that our staff has had to become, right? This is not something that superintendents or principals or anybody were ever dreamed that they would have to tackle and lead on. And but our folks are doing an exemplary job, and until I see otherwise, that's where I'm going to place my trust. And so I would just encourage you, Terry, and everybody else to to keep that in mind. these are people that we've hired to make the tough decisions, and they have even maybe more concern than we do about keeping our community safe, our students safe, our staff safe. Just, I guess that's where I'm at.
Mike, I agree with everything you said, but I would like to say that if somebody does not vote to change the metric, that is not a reflection or a statement of mistrust in administration by any means.
Yeah, I agree.
That's all I want to say. It's not a vote of,
the
lack of confidence.
Right. The convert, to not vote in favor doesn't necessarily mean that you don't agree with what I've said, right? And I fully
Thank
agree
you.
with that. And that's good that you're giving people that latitude, reminding them of that.
Yeah, I just want to echo that because I feel that it has a lot more to do with one values more. And I think that the public health is the most important thing to consider, and one's safety. And just once again, I think this back and forth is very disruptive to staff and families. And I think sometimes the quality of the education could be somewhat diminished by this back and forth. And while I want to see our students back in school, they're our best natural resource that we have, I don't think you can have education without good public health first. And it's about the community as well.
Thank you, Joanne. That was very good. So torn.
Does somebody want to call a vote? I think we've lost Sherelle, right? She's gone.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the 10% number for hybrid learning.
Okay, Rick motions. Second?
I'll second that.
Dan seconds.
Do we have, so I appreciate the motion, but we want to make sure that we're also accepting the greater than 200 per 100,000 cases, and that the decision's based on a rolling average past the 14 days recorded each Monday.
Let me take my motion. I accept everything that was proposed today by administration.
So the motion that the administration proposed, Rick, if you would like to amend your motion to be this, is to set the community transmission threshold for operating the 2021 hybrid schedule in person at 10% positivity or 200 cases per 100,000 persons based on the most recent 14-day rolling average available at 3 p.m. each Monday.
I can do that.
And to be clear, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your motion, but to clarify, the 3 p.m. Monday is when the official number comes out from IDPH, right?
It's in the afternoon.
It's in the afternoon. Frankly, sometimes they post it Friday night because I follow it, but sometimes it's Saturday morning. But that's because I get that question a lot. Why is it till Monday? And it's because that's when the official number comes out at some point. And then you need some time to digest it.
Right,
So
I've
I just
got to
want
be
to
able to get the information off the IDPH website and double check all of our math.
So sorry for interrupting you, Rick, but I just want to make
that's okay.
Yeah.
I'd still, since the motion just got on the floor, I'd still like to make a discussion.
We need a second before we
need Dan's second to the amended motion.
Mike seconds. Go ahead, Chair.
I seconded.
Dan seconds.
I'm with, I believe it was Dan. I'm not crazy about the Monday notification. I think that there should be some mechanism that the administration uses to give the teachers, and maybe not our students per se, as much as our teachers, to know, hey, this is where we're headed. I've got a feel for this, so that they'll be prepared.
To that, I always try to be open and transparent with our entire staff, including our teachers, and would absolutely intend on letting people know the direction the numbers are heading at the end of the week. this is also the mechanics of where our metrics currently sit, right? In the first semester, we only sat in the range that we're in now, this 9 to 10% range, for a couple of weeks. It was either blew past it and it was clearly past these kinds of range, or it sat well below it. So I think we just happen to be in this time frame of we're coming back and we're in that same window of where those numbers sit. I think as the further away from we get from the holidays here, we may dip and stay below these numbers. And it's very clear every week that we're here for in-person learning. Or that other variant could show up and become far more, drive up our rates far quicker. And then it'd be very clear that we're remote, right? It's just a nature of where we're sitting in this week. And I know it's a tough decision to make for this week, but because we are where we are and what our experience was in that first week, it makes me, as an educator that believes kids should be in school if it's safe to do so, as I've told everybody for the last 10 months, that I need to be here in front of the board to say, look, right now, based on everything we as an administrative team know, we think it's safe to have kids back next week.
Mm-hmm. To your point about the trend, I would, and this kind of speaks to Terry, I think, two things. One, weekends reporting falls. It just does consistently since the start of the pandemic. But the other thing is I've been giving a lot of thoughts to, at some point we're going to be over this. Mm-hmm. At some point we're going to be trending down, 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 down. And I personally will have a lot more faith in raising positivity numbers, whatever metrics we're looking at, once we know we're consistently trending down over a period of time. So tangential to what Terry said, I really would like to see us start following the percent change in new cases per 100,000 during the last 7 days compared to the previous 7 days. Because I think that will, in the long run, give us more information to help us make an informed decision. But that's not a vote, that's just a suggestion.
We'll definitely look at that. I will discuss that number with the health experts and try to understand it a little better.
But the vote is going to be on basically those 3 items, and one of them is that number, right?
No, it's a different metric that we haven't discussed to this point. The percent change.
Adding to that.
Right. It would Nancy would like for us to investigate that number, and if I'm understanding correctly, and
correct,
how, if that would be a better predictor of safety for us over the long term than the 2 metrics that we're using from the CDC as recommended by the CDC right now.
And I think the motion says on Monday, but what I'm hearing is, and I support, that we would work towards looking at making that decision formally earlier than later. But I don't know that you can really speak to that at this point, right? Because you're changing the way you're gathering the metrics as we speak.
Correct.
Is that a fair assumption? Okay.
I mean, here's the challenge, right? Is the numbers do change over the weekend, and
yeah, they do.
If we pick or choose Friday as the date, because then it gives people more time to plan. We are definitely, by the time we come back the following Tuesday, relying on data. This was Dan and Rick's concern last Monday, that is far outside of the window of concern for when students are returning to school.
I mean, I agree with them. They've got a valid point. I mean, there's just like no good solution to any of this.
So we move it to Monday because we want to use the best data available to us, but that brings in a whole nother set of challenges. Yeah. So as an administrative team, we talked about, okay, maybe we should pick the 14-day on Friday and say, if it's trending in the right direction, then we're going to come back. So everybody knows, okay, we could set it at 10 on Friday, and if it's trending down over the past 7 days, then we're going to be back on Monday because we're pointed in the right direction. We set it at 10 on Friday, and if it's trending up, well, then it's probably going to keep going up over the weekend, and then we're not back. That might be the best metric trend to look at and gives people a lot of time more time to plan, not a lot of time, but more time to plan, right?
Yeah.
It probably points to the way that it definitely points to the direction that the data is going in. However, it isn't something that is super easy for somebody to just go and look at. Although we can work on our dashboard to try to make that clear and apparent of, explaining which way the line is pointing in on Friday will play into things. And that is something we discussed on the administrative team. We just didn't know what like we said earlier, Nancy, pros and cons with all of this. I would be comfortable with that. And I would work with our team to make it as clear to everybody as possible. If Rick wanted to amend that it would be based on the 10% positivity.
Does Rick have to amend it,
Yeah,
or
he
can
would have
any
to
of
amend
us
it. He made the
amend it?
motion, or he'd have to remove his motion and then put it back differently. But if that was something that the board wanted to consider, of setting it on Friday and setting the 10% threshold, I guess we'd have to play with it a little bit, because you'd either say we'd have to play with it a little bit here and workshop it to figure it out.
Yeah, right now the motion is for the 10% positivity or 200 cases per 100,000 based on the most recent 14-day rolling average.
That's what's
available
on
at 3 p.m. each Monday. We can amend that. I don't know if Hank is ready to really, it doesn't sound like at this moment in time. Can you confidently say, do you feel confident in amending that, Hank, or do you need more time before we can always look at that as a separate motion? So my point.
Can we remove it
Well,
from the motion?
To remove it, you'd have to vote it down at this point, or Rick would
Okay.
have to take it off the table.
I guess my big concern is consistency. I really feel that we need to get the kids back in school, but we need to be consistent about it. We can't keep going 1 week this, 1 week that, 1 week this, 1 week that. It's got to be consistent.
I totally agree with you. I agree with everything everybody said. But I don't know if that's so much a factor of this happening at 3 p.m. on Monday as it is just the volatility of the numbers.
Yes, I understand that. But this going back and forth isn't good for anybody.
Terry, everybody agrees with that, but we're in a pandemic right now. I mean, it's unpredictable. The kids going back and forth, and nobody can guarantee that will or won't happen. And no matter what we do with our numbers, nobody can guarantee that will or won't happen. And the best thing we can all do is, I think, as a board, as a community, to stop, lamenting about it and really kind of let's start talking about how we're all in this together and supporting each other and the difficulty that we have in working through this. And I think that's, so we had a presentation at our meeting last Monday, talking about student supports and the things that we're doing, and we have to try to focus on that positive. But I'm 100%, I agree with you. I mean, I have a daughter here who's, bouncing back and forth, and I'm seeing it firsthand. I get it. I totally get it. But, we talk about here is, it's 1 week at a time, and we can get through this thing together. And what can we do as parents to support our students in this? And it's a tough time for the country, but it's time for everyone to come together as one, and that's where we are right now. So I don't know. I think, Rick, are you going to pull the question back, or you want to call it?
I want to call a vote.
So question on that. So we don't need to change the vote, or we don't need to change the resolution for Hank to tell us that he's going to let the teachers know on Friday what the trending looks like.
No, that's just my practice. Yeah,
Right.
I will definitely do that. I would have done it regardless of what we talked about today. I want people to know what to plan for.
Okay. So you can tell us right now that if we move forward with this, that you will let the teachers know on Fridays what it's looking like for next week. And it may be too close to call, but you'll let them know.
Well, this is, if this resolution passes, I'll have to let them know this afternoon that it looks like we'll be back on Monday, the way that the numbers are trending, but we'll know for sure on Monday. I mean, we'll be exactly in that scenario today.
Okay, great. So we don't have to change the motion for that to happen.
No, that'll just be my practice.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, and we can come together again too, to amend this once again, if need be. I mean, hey, we need to be nimble. I know everybody wants consistency, that sort of thing, but everything keeps changing and we've got to be willing to change with it. And so I think we've heard some good things today, suggestion from Nancy. I like what's being suggested. I like the idea that Hank would go back and talk to the staff, to his team, about how we might further refine this and make it even better. I'm fully supportive of that, but I think I still support what we're talking about doing right now at this meeting this morning.
And one of the things we're going to talk about at our next meeting, which is a week from Monday, because Rick had brought up before, and in all the discussion, frankly, I lost it last time we met, was setting up a standard weekly meeting that could be canceled at any time. But we have to put a public notice, blah, blah, blah. So one of the things we'll be talking about at our next meeting is setting that up and what that means for people, and are people willing to do that, et cetera. So that we can act more quickly, more easily.
I will also point back to something I said earlier that I don't want to get lost. I don't think this will be the normal. I think it's just a weird time where we're sitting right around this threshold and, and our experiences within this threshold. I think we will quickly fall back down below it, and it'll be very clear week to week that we're in person, or we'll rapidly pass beyond it, and it'll be very clear that we should be remote because we're outside of that 10% range where we as an administration, based on the guidelines, based on our experience, feel that it's safe to have students at school. It's just the weird spot where we're in today on this day.
So are we back to the vote?
Yes.
Terry, did you have anything else you wanted to change or add? Or?
well, I'm just saying that if we want to take out that last part, we need to vote this down and make a new motion without it.
You wanted it to not be at 3 p.m. on Monday? Is what
Yes.
you're saying? Yes, the motion on the table is as of 3 p.m. on Monday.
Terry,
Yeah.
would you be more comfortable if it said no later than 3 p.m. each Monday?
Yeah, I suppose, but just taking it out altogether in this motion, and then we can discuss, making a separate motion for that. Does that make sense?
No, doesn't
No.
make sense.
No? Why
No,
not?
No, I'm not following what you're trying to, what's your end goal?
My end goal is to say we need to make a tentative decision on Friday rather than on Monday.
Oh, okay. So you want it based on the data, the 14-day rolling average available on Friday instead of
Yes.
Monday?
Can I make a suggestion here? Could we just have two motions? One talking about the rate, the 10% positivity, and then a separate motion related to when the decision will be made.
That's up to Rick, right? He made the motion.
Yeah, it is up to Rick.
There's a motion that's been seconded on the table. All
Well,
right.
yeah,
So
that's
let's
why I'm
vote.
saying that, Rick, that's why I'm saying you got to vote this down and then we can do another one.
Right.
You got to vote it down so that.
No, yes.
I agree, but I like Nancy's suggestion of changing the verbiage to no later than 3 p.m. on Monday. That gives Hank
Flexibility.
and
Yeah.
I'm seeing Rick nod his head. So I would suggest that you amend the motion once again to do that, and then,
I can definitely amend it to that wording because that gives Hank a little bit more flexibility.
So to be clear then, the motion on the floor is for the Board of Education to set the community transmission threshold for operating the 2021 hybrid schedule in person at 10% positivity or 200 cases per 100,000 persons based on the most recent 14-day rolling average, no later than 3 p.m. each Monday.
Available no later than 3 p.m. each Monday. Rick, are
Okay,
you
available no
amending
later than.
I'm in favor of that.
Okay,
Who
so that's-
seconded?
Dan,
Dan,
I
you
second.
have to agree to that.
I agree.
Okay, we're gonna call the vote.
Rick Pavanato,
aye.
Dan Nicholas,
Aye.
Terry Pavasich,
Nay.
Joanna Vasquez Drexler,
Nay.
Mike Davenport.
aye.
Schroeffler is absent, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and Nancy Kupka.
No, so we are 3-3.
That means it does not pass.
It does not pass. We will put it on the agenda again for next Monday.
Unless somebody wants to make another motion now.
Unless somebody wants to make another motion, no.
Yes. I move that we do the 10% positivity rate. That's it.
So if I'm understanding what you're asking for, to set the community transmission threshold for operating the 2021 hybrid schedule in person at a 10% positivity rate or 200 cases per 100,000 persons based on the most recent 14-day rolling average available, or the way we have it now would be for the Friday prior to the next week of instruction.
Yes.
I second.
Terry, Mike.
Thank you. Terry Pavasich,
Aye.
Mike Davenport,
Aye.
Dan Nicholas,
Aye.
Rick Pavanato,
Aye.
Joanna Vasquez Drexler,
No.
Nancy Kupka.
No. The motion, however, does carry.
Okay.
So can we just talk about thank you, board. Can I just tell you about the logistic piece? The challenge that we're in now
Mhm.
is that it may not be until Monday this week that I have that number.
Mhm.
Okay,
Right.
so
I understand.
our staff our staff and community won't know until Monday because I need Northwestern to update their data because I don't have enough data yet to know what Friday's 14-day average was
Right.
until they update that number.
But we're still operating under, so we're still operating under the hybrid model, the 9% in the 150, right? I mean, you'd still be using that to make a determination for this coming week then?
10% and 150.
So
The
hey,
issue is just notify when that decision will be available. It won't be available Friday. It will be available Monday, just because of how the date that the decision fell. That's what I'm understanding.
Well, I'm talking about what's going to happen this coming week. I'm not following some.
So, and it looks like, according to Northwestern dashboard, hasn't been updated for Friday yet. The
Yeah.
14-day average is 9.62 with the 7-day average at like 8.25. So unless there are some dramatic changes, which there weren't yesterday when you looked at the testing numbers,
Mhm.
we will most likely be in school next week.
Correct. Our most recent available number for Friday is under 10.
Now, is it?
It's not
because
Friday.
It's a holiday. Is that going to be a problem?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how the metrics will get reported. I guess what we would have to do is, if you're concerned about that, we'd have to. How did we read the motion? Did we say available on Friday? Julie, can
I
you
don't
tell me
think
what
so.
the motion was?
Julie?
And Terry, you said no later, you did not do a time on Friday.
No.
So did we say the most recent available rolling average available on Friday?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I didn't have the exact
I
wording.
don't think we did, to be
I don't
honest.
think you said it that way, no.
I think we need to delineate that whether it's Friday's data or the data that's available on Friday.
Right.
And I know it sounds weird, but it is a
No, it
huge
doesn't sound weird.
difference, right? Because I can't control the rate in which data is reported to me. So if it is Friday's data, I might not have that until Tuesday this week because of the holiday. I think it needs to say the same language that I brought before, which is available on Friday. Because otherwise it does nothing to meet the concerns that we had that people would know is going on. So it's got to be like available to me at 3 p.m. on Friday, or, noon sometime, so that I know when to go, whatever data is available to me, that I draw upon that at that time. And if it's like Thursday's data is the most recent data available to me at that time, then I'm going to use Thursday's data. If it's Fridays, it's Fridays. But I don't want to end up in a spot where we're at right now. If I have to rely on Friday's data and I might not get it until sometime next week, it does nobody any good, and we end up worse off than we ever have been to this point. So
Can we just make it best available?
So do we need to make another motion?
we do. We would need
So
a
Terry,
motion.
Go ahead.
Because we've already voted now. So we would
Okay.
need a motion to use the 14-day average data available as of either 3 p.m. Friday or available by the end of the workday Friday, whatever you want me to say, at noon Friday.
Can you say most recent data?
Yes, the most recent 14-day
data.
average available
By
as
5
of-
p.m. Friday. Does that
3
make
I
sense?
would prefer not
Or
5
3.
p.m. I prefer
sorry.
that people go home for the week knowing what's going to happen the next week.
Yeah. So what, 3 o'clock?
Yeah, 3 o'clock's good, because we always like to send the message out before people go, or as people are going home, because then it's either then or it'd be the middle of the day. We try not to disrupt the flow of class periods. And if we're releasing that information at 3 p.m., it will definitely disrupt what's going on in classrooms. So it's either the middle of the day at noon, or it's the end of the day at 3, gives us the time frame to communicate that out and not disrupt learning that's going on. Because as you could imagine, this would likely become a conversation point.
So moved for 3 p.m.
So what exactly is the motion?
I'm going to read a motion. You tell me if you think this is correct. Terry is moving to set the time the data will be retrieved and decisions will be made for the next week based on the most recent 14-day rolling average available at 3 p.m. each Friday.
And that is without language related to positivity or the rate, correct?
That would just be setting the official time in which we would use data and draw data.
I'll second that.
Pasich,
Yes.
Rick Pavanato,
Yes.
Joanna Vasquez Drexler,
Yes.
Mike Davenport,
Yes.
Joel Fuller. I'm sorry, Dan Nicholas,
Yes.
Nancy Kupka.
Yes, the motion carries.
So to put it together so that everybody is clear of between the two motions, what we have just decided, just so everybody's clear and everybody knows in the community, and then we can communicate it out to everybody, is that we have set the community transmission threshold for operating the 2021 school hybrid schedule in person at a 10% positivity or 200 cases per 100,000 persons based on the most recent 14-day rolling average available at 3 p.m. each Friday. And
Correct. But that is as two motions, because I do not support the 10.
No, I know. But I mean, effectively.
Effectively, yes.
With one voice.
Okay.
So the one voice of the board between those two actions is what I just read. And based on that, we will be returning to school for in-person learning next Monday because my most recent available 14-day rolling average as of 3 p.m. last Friday has us below 10.
Tuesday, right?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah, Tuesday, not Monday. Where schools closed Monday for a federal holiday to respect Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Yes. Anyways, so Tuesday we would return to the hybrid model, and we will do everything to communicate that out to everybody today. Any concerns from the board beyond that matter? We all in agreement and understanding that that's.
Thank you for your hard work on this, Hank, and
Yeah.
for the extra time today, and continuing getting the word out to the community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Hank.
All right, thank you, board. I think
So we need a motion.
I move we adjourn.
Mike motion. Mike and Terry, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much
Thank
to
you, everyone.
Hank and all staff and everybody else for coming in on Saturday morning. Again, remember our next meeting, we're going to talk about setting up a standing emergency meeting that can always be canceled, but that decision has to be made within 2 days. You know the Open Meetings Act.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you all.
Right.
Thank you.